Hi there. Today we're going to be talking about timing of death. Welcome to Reconnect. I'm Diana Palm, and I'm the medium that helps you to heal the grief from heartbreak and loss. Today's episode is all about timing of death, which is a really interesting topic and something that I like to work with my clients on coming to understand better. So if you've lost loved ones, which most of you probably have, you'll notice that your grief is different based on who's passing, and it has nothing to do with how much you love them, but rather their contracts with you, their soul contracts with you. So in my personal life, I had lost a few family members and friends, and then later on in life, there were two significant deaths that really shaped the rest of my life. Now that's when you know that you have an actual soul contract to learn from that individual, that loved one. You learn from their life, the life that you share together, but then you also learn from their death. And their death has a marked timing, like a stamp, it's inserted into your existence to shape your reality, to shape the rest of your life. And those deaths, they're significant. They really make you reevaluate and reassess what you're doing in your life. And they help you to either get on track, change track, or to just self-adjust. There's tremendous soul growth when you're impacted by a loved one's passing, especially when there's a soul contract in place. So timing of death is also referred to as death doors. Your soul created death doors, opportunities to go home to the other side before you even came here to live this life. So you may have selected 6 possibilities for yourself. And if you've decided to pass one, you will maybe get sick, you might have a near-miss accident or something else along the way until you choose the next one. When the next one arrives, and if your soul chooses to go home, you will pass, and that's the timing that you selected. So my clients often come to me, in a different state of grief, in varying different states of grief. And the ones that seem to really have the most trouble healing is when they feel like it was untimely, when they feel like it was too soon, that the individual that died didn't finish their life goals, or they're just about to reach adulthood, or just about to do something significant, and then they died too early. Now, I just really want to reiterate that there's no lifetime that's unfinished. Every single thing that you do is purposeful and in divine timing with your own timeline. So when I'm working with people in my Reconnect program, in my #1 spiritual grief program, I help them to get inspired life changes after loss. And this is where I actually tune in with their loved one and help them realize the purpose, the divine nature of their union and their connection to that person. I help them retrieve the soul contracts that they shared with that individual that passed, so that they can fully grasp the spiritual impact of sharing life together with that individual. And it's so beautiful, because a lot of people do get stuck in grief and spend years, reminiscing and mourning and saying to themselves over and over, oh, we didn't get a whole lifetime together, or oh, they were just about ready to do this and then they died. And those are the unfinished bits that keep the living stuck in grief, because they don't conceptualize or understand spiritually the nature of the timing of death. So when I'm working with people, I like to bring that up. It's part of my program to really understand that spiritually there is a divine timing in every death, every single death, no matter if it was an accident, an illness, suicide, murder, any kind of death. All death is pre-selected. And that's really difficult for people. It's very difficult for people to realize that, especially when it didn't happen by their own hand or by their old age or something that seems more natural. But I've worked with many, many, many people over 30 years. And what I see intuitively when I'm connected, I actually see that even in very tragic circumstances, tragic death, that there is a soul contract and a choice to either to have the experience and to leave. Now, I want to be clear, they're not choosing to be victimized or harmed. That's not why they choose it, I should say. On a soul level, perhaps the significance of the way that they passed really shapes and moves things for their loved ones that are still living. So for instance, I'll share a story with you. Many years ago, I was working with a family and their child was randomly selected and was shot to death. And I just really prayed so hard before I went to meet with the family, because I wanted to be shown how could this possibly, make sense? Why would somebody choose that? And I was shown specifically that this child had two options. It was definitely going to be that the child died at this specific time, but there were two possibilities, two options. One, he could have gotten leukemia, and two, he could have selected the gunshot. And I was kind of blown away by that at first. It was one of the first times that I worked with a child that died so tragically. And I remember kind of going really deep into it and just asking God, please show me this. How can I make sense of this for the family? And I was shown, in one reality where the child would get leukemia, it was an excessive hardship on the family, financially, emotionally, long and drawn out, and everyone would stay in grief longer, his whole family afterwards. And then with the gunshot, this, I will say, opportunity to select this door and this way of passing created an opening for the family. It was quick. There was no pre-suffering. It was just after suffering. The child did not have to linger or see his family suffering. And then it created a life path for the family, because the family found purpose and meaning in that type of death, where they got a new life path. They actually selected to grow from the experience and to be advocates and speakers about, gun safety, gun control, and a lot of different things. So it created a new pathway for the living family members. And as I stayed in that meditation and I stayed connected and I continued to get information, I saw that the child literally had no pain, that in the moment before the gun went off, a big, beautiful angel, a huge angel, like 7 feet tall, was sitting in the car with the child and said, now it's time, and the child's soul left the body before the bullet hit. So there was absolutely no pain. He literally left his body and did not feel any pain or suffering. And his mother actually remarked that she knew that to be true, because she pulled the car over and held him in her arms, and he just, like this, he didn't suffer. He didn't feel the pain. So I think this is really an important topic, because the living are the ones that have such a hard time with loss. And it's important to know that there is a plan. There is a divine plan, and it's set up by you. Each person has pre-selected, predetermined pathways towards their own passing. It could be, a childhood death. It could be an old age death. It could be middle age. It could be any age. We have pre-selections. So when you're suffering and you're grieving the loss of a loved one, you're not always privy to that information. And that's why the loss of them is so devastating. So part of my program, helps people to realize these things. And it doesn't take away the longing or the missing for the person that's no longer in their physical reality, but it does shape their perception around the passing, and knowing that this was a predetermined, pre-selected by the individual death, that it eases the burden on the living. They don't have to go through life feeling all the unfinished business or projecting that there was unfinished business. It really feels more peaceful in the heart and soul of the living who's moving through the grief process. We help them find the grieving a new life path. We help them to shift the energy of grief, and it brings insight to their own pathway as well. Into having that knowledge allows you to review your life and be more conscious about the soul contracts that you may have going on. So I love that because it makes more sense to the living, and sometimes those are the very deep spiritual nuggets that allow people to heal, process, and move forward. Of course, we always connect with the loved ones throughout my program and also let the grieving know that they are not alone and that their loved one is still very much with them and intact with their personality and their likes and dislikes, and they're still with you. They never, ever, ever, ever leave you. They're not here with you just physically, and then maybe you'll see them again in heaven. They never leave you. Every single person that enters your life comes in to connect because it's destined. And they move through the physical life experience with you. When they pass or you pass, you still stay connected. And in the afterlife, in the in-between, connected, the next life, connected. So it's quite amazing. The people that you have close to you, your soul family, those are the people that you bring in close to your heart, that you really love, that you really bond with. Those are the people that you will have lifetime and lifetime with. So there really is no separation. And that's also a significant part of my program when I help people to identify the specific afterlife signs and symbols. Then they really, really realize that they still are connected. Because in grief is, they often say, unexpressed love, but it's more of the disconnection that makes people suffer, because they want to be connected. They want to feel connected to their loved one who's passed. Once you realize that they really, really are with you, and you're not just picking out, random signs, and you identify these are the specific signs, then you know in your heart, wow, this is real. We still are connected. They still hear me. They still love me. And it makes it safe to move forward. I have signs and symbols for each individual loved one that I've had that passed. My grandma, Beck, she sends hummingbirds, because right before she passed, when she went into hospice, a hummingbird came and fluttered in my face when I was on the phone talking about her passing and being moved into hospice. And it just stayed at me, and it stared at me for the longest time. And I was like, oh, this is new. That doesn't happen very often. I mean, never, actually. It hasn't happened before or since. So I knew that was Spirit's way of showing me my grandma is going to be sending you hummingbirds. So that is specific to her. When my little sister passed, we had a remarkable experience. There was a family my family was gathered, a number of us were, and we got visited by a dragonfly that came in. We were praying in a circle, and it came in and buzzed the circle and looked at each one of us, and then it left. And we knew that will be from my sister, the dragonfly. So I have an afterlife journal that I provide in my program that really helps you break down and identify what specific signs and symbols would be from your loved one, so that you can feel that authentic connection. You can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are still connected to your loved one that passed. So on Father's Day, I put out a little blurb that I'm having a very, very special sale. I will not be reducing this program ever, but my father, in spirit, he died last year, he encouraged me to offer a special for Father's Day. So I started it on Father's Day, and it will be valid until the end of June, which is June 30th. And then the price will be consistent all the time. So it will not go on discount again. So the special is 30% off. That's what Dad said. So it's 30% off from now until June. If you want to take advantage of that, the coupon code is Father's Day 30. be sure you email me or write it in the comments so that I can contact you, and I'll send you a special link. The link is not on my website. The link is the regular price on the website. So if you're interested in getting started and moving through the grief process and finding out all these really powerful spiritual healings and clarifications for you, be sure you take advantage of that while you can. And I didn't plan for my next session, my next episode, because I wanted to see what my viewers wanted. I wanted to see what kind of questions you had about grief and the afterlife. And I want to make sure that I'm answering your questions. So please be sure to put those in the comments. Send me your questions. Send me the information that you have, that's on your soul and on your mind that you want to know, so that I can actually create some episodes for you and be sure to answer whatever questions you have coming up around that. I think that that's it. I want to let you know that, when you have had so much loss, and we've all experienced more loss than usual in the past few years, every single death is important and individual, and your grief experience will be also unique to each loved one and the circumstances surrounding their death. But keep in your mind and in your heart moving forward that there's a pattern and a reason and a purpose for the timing of one's death and the circumstances around it. So if you've been having a grieving heart and you would like assistance with that, please be sure you take advantage of my program with the amazing discount until June 30th. All right, you guys, again, put it down in the comments, either above or below this video, whatever your questions are about grief, death, or the afterlife, and I'll be so happy to make some episodes for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.